Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Echoangeli. Present. Vining. Here. Germaini.
Here.
Lamore.
Here.
Felder. Here. Mayor Clark.
Here. I'd ask that all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We have faith and hope in each other and our form of government. We ask for your guidance in the decisions that are made here. We ask you to help us work for the welfare of this community.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just moving some stuff. Clerk, first item, please.
The first item are any amendments to the agenda.
Any amendments to the agenda? I know that our work session, we talked about some items that will come up during the consent agenda, but we'll be handling at that point. Next item, please.
Citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
So at this time, the agenda, as well as at the end of the agenda, there's an opportunity for those present here this evening to make comments not related to an agenda item. So the agendas, well, they're up there. Some I know they're passed along. So at this time, if there's anybody wishing to make comments, please come to the podium. State your name and address, but also be mindful of the rules of the chamber, which is 3 minutes. Obviously, there are many people here that may want to speak on a topic. And just that's where we start. Thank you. Name and address,
Evening,
please.
council and other city officials. Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. I just wanted to give a compliment to the city of Monroe. The only thing I knew about Monroe was being a former New Yorker, driving back home, that we passed Monroe, and you used to have the discount outlet centers here. That's the last time I was in the city of Monroe. Recently, I ran for chair of the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, and with 83 counties in the state of Michigan, my job was to go around to all the counties and reach out to the voters about my candidacy and what I hope to bring to the Black Caucus. And I came to the city of Monroe. I was impressed with the way my husband and I were treated, the amount of verbal love, conversation, and I thought, wow, this is really great. But I was concerned about the fact that at this meeting, I was the only African American, and the other African American was the current chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, LaVora Barnes. So as I was talking to a lot of the people there, they said that we have a lot of blacks in Monroe, but we can't seem to bridge the divide between the tracks. Well, what tracks? I don't remember tracks in Monroe. They said the black people live east of the tracks and the other nationalities live the west of the track. So being a diversity advocate, I said, if you want to bridge the divide, I'm the person that you should be talking to. And one of the ways that we decided to bridge that gap was to have a Juneteenth celebration. I was even more surprised that a lot of people had never heard of Juneteenth, did not know the significance of it. So after meeting with the appropriate city leaders, we decided to have the event and to have it on June the 19th. We also had an essay contest, and the essay question was for the students to answer, what is the significance of Juneteenth to African Americans? And I was really impressed with these young kids, the research that they did to be able to at least write 300 to 500 words to say what Juneteenth was. In addition to giving them a very nice plaque, we gave $75 to the first place winner, $50 to the second place winner, and $25 to the third place winner. And we allowed the first place winner to read his essay, which was very nice. So my husband and I, we were one of the sponsors, and we have a group called the Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee, which originated in the city of Southfield. But I want to thank all of the other sponsors that played a very big role in bringing this event together. It was a wonderful collaboration. ALCC, Better Made Snack Foods, Brand Scaffolding, thanks to Mike Smith and Vince Pasteur for assisting in making the stage happen. The City of Monroe Fire and Police Department, Green Hill Gardens, L.S. Navarre Branch Library, the Monroe County Democratic Party, the Monroe County Chapter NAACP, the Monroe County Library System, Monroe Lenawee AFL-CIO Council, Oaks of Righteousness, and a special thanks to Robert Lyles from the Drama Department, Pat White, the Shelter Administrator, Pastor Heather Boone, our group, the Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee, 17 West Cafe, and all of the residents and dancers and the people that participated. A real shout out to the bookmobile from the library because the kids really seemed to enjoy that. So on behalf of the Monroe County Juneteenth Celebration Committee, I wanted to present this award to the city of Monroe for just making this happen. So, Mr. Mayor, could I ask you to come down to the
Sure enough,
podium?
absolutely.
And I wanted to show everybody the award. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
In addition to that, Jeremy Moss is my senator for the 14th Congressional District, but we had Senator Adam Ollier of Detroit to get together and do a Senate resolution, and it's Senate Resolution 62, acknowledging Juneteenth in the state of Michigan. So we also wanted to present the city with a copy of this, and we hope you proudly display it someplace where people can see it. And here's the box, but you won't be needing this because you're going to display it, right?
That's correct.
And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And people have already said they want to see another Juneteenth celebration. And we just hope every year that it gets bigger and better. And I like what you're saying about involving the kids in the community. That's our future.
Don't
Thank you
leave
so
right yet,
much.
because I just want to say thank you for being here. And on behalf of the council, I accept this recognition, but I know that Councilwoman Vining was very involved as well, and we
Yes.
chatted about that.
Yes.
And to provide some information as well, and I want to thank the city managers as well, in
Right.
support of the city, so.
Right.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Vining. And we also have Bill Parker, who's here from the Monroe NAACP, and Mr. Jerry Young, who's from the AFL Lenawee Monroe AFL-CIO. So I don't know, would you guys like to come in and add a few words? Okay. So I thank you so much. And what I'd like to do is shake Miss LaVoy's hand. And I'm going to go around and just shake everybody's hand and say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you again.
So much again. Thank you very much. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you're the man that made the stage. And lastly, there's always a political divide between Republicans and Democrats. You guys should be very proud of the fact that your state senator, Dale Zorn, was one of the people that co-sponsored Senate Resolution 62. So I think he deserves a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Hello, Council. Jerry Young, 606 East First Street. On behalf of myself and the Monroe Lenawee AFL-CIO Central Labor Council, which is a proud sponsor of the Juneteenth event, I would like to thank the city for its proclamation and recognition of the day, this important historical event. This won't be the last, so we look forward to seeing you all next year and the rest of the city of Monroe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jerry. Other comments here this evening not related to an agenda item?
Take my hat off, but I just got out of the pool, and my hair's a bit messy. I'm Otto Zilgett, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Monroe, and I've lived on Hollywood Drive for nearly 40 years. I appreciate the infrastructure work being done to the water mains in the city. We certainly don't want to be the next Flint. But I have concerns about the work on Hollywood. I have discussed this with Toby Worrell. Construction started nearly a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and one of the first steps was to dig large holes up and down the street. Some of these holes are in the median, but north of Lorraine, it was decided to abandon the old water line in the median and put in a new line along the east side of Hollywood under the sidewalk. They dug up parts of the sidewalk and yards, including sidewalk in front of my house. I don't think I mentioned I live at 630 Hollywood. I should say that. The hole is the size of 2 to 3 rectangles of sidewalk and about 5 feet deep. It is surrounded by plastic fencing. It is filled with stagnant, smelly water, creating perfect conditions for mosquito breeding. The root systems of many trees have been torn apart and exposed to some degree, and it doesn't look like there was much done to protect those roots. I moved on to Hollywood in 1980 when there were stately elm trees that succumbed to Dutch elm disease and had to be cut down. It is now nearly 40 years later, and the trees are nice and tall again and providing shade. I don't have another 40 years to wait and see the trees grow to maturity. It was my understanding that the crew was taken off of Hollywood to work on Front Street and finish that. They've not done any work on Hollywood in about 2 weeks. In my trips out today, there was no crew on Hollywood again, but they did begin work on Maywood. My daughter lives on Scottwood, and that project was finally completed this spring after having been started last summer. Here are my questions. Is there a plan for mosquito eradication? And is the plan to have all of this work completed on Hollywood by late September so we don't have to go through the winter with the roads in bad shape, the driveways, the curbs and gutter, the holes in the sidewalk? And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thanks, Otto. Well, I don't know if I have the questions. Mr. Pastu may have answered the questions. I know that the engineering puts out a weekly road update. I know it gets publicized, but also is available. Or I should say, Hollywood is one of the obviously main projects we have going this year. Regarding the completion date, I can only go by what the last report was, and it was project will last sometime through this summer. As things progress. At the same time, you're right. Front Street is a very similar project with lines and waters as well as they'll all come back and do the resurfacing collectively. And I know you know that makes sense because you can't do parts and do it all. So I'm looking at Mr. Pastu if there's any other comments on that.
There's just, by the end, we're looking to have it completed by the end of the construction season. There are certainly factors into consideration with that, but clearly we don't want this, and we're far enough along that that should not be the case like it was last year. We don't have a mosquito eradication plan in our.
A lot of mosquitoes over there.
So, but no, there's with the sole contractor that we had for the water meter work this year, we only got one bid. I don't know, we did almost $4 million in work this year. So we wanted to tie up that work over on, east or west front, and then get back in there and finish it up. I think they've already done some pressure testing and parts of it and started to do some connections with some of the other meters. And I didn't have my,
the report with me, and Mr. Pastu is correct. So as they move along and have the replacement, there's days in which you have to do the pressure test, and I'm probably telling things but maybe some others don't know, and you have to work your way through that. And of course, it looks like nobody's there. I know at times because I live on West Front, so we're not battling projects. I can tell you that right now. So the idea is I think Mr. Pastu made a good comment. I was going to actually be in my comments at the end because we're in the middle of many projects. And as the council looked at projects and bids, we had one bidder on the projects. And there's 2 others that were consistently had bid on projects for the city. And Mr. Lewis did call them and say, is there a reason why you're not bidding? Is this not the work you want to do? And some of these are over $1 million individual projects. And they said, we'd love to do it. We don't have the capacity or the employees to do it. And we all know the downturn, a lot of construction work went elsewhere in employees, and now we're at the opportunity to do that, and as many projects as we possibly can with the revenue we have. But unfortunately, we're not having the shared opportunities of different bidding companies. Not making excuses, I'm just kind of the reality for everybody to know that, because you said that, that Ziegler Excavating, but as I look down here, they're listed 3 times on the 5 projects we have. They have the capacity to do it, but obviously there's also time that is shared. I'll just say that.
I might also add that there are people that walk up and down the street and they think those holes are for trash. Because I've noticed several of the holes have trash, you know? It's
I'm gonna make a,
unfortunate.
yeah, I'm gonna comment about the mosquitoes. I'm not gonna, I'm not looking to say this should be something we should do, but I don't even know if it's feasible. Because we did get a call this week about spraying. It's not something we do, but we do have the tablets that we put in the drain basins and to help eradicate that. I don't know that that's something that would be done on a construction project, but I'll just have that discussion later with staff on that. Thanks.
And Toby did tell me that they were gonna try to bring the crew in and pump the water out, but if you pump the water out, it's gonna fill right back up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you. So other comments from those present here this evening, not related to an agenda item? Yes, name and address, please.
Thank you, Council. My name is Tom Beelan, 255 Maywood. I'm here to discuss a couple of concerns I have about the construction on Maywood, which is related to my neighbor there. There was some notes I saw that Maywood was being reduced by 6 feet of width. For those who are familiar with Maywood, Maywood terminates into Macomb. It's the main thoroughfare to kind of get from anywhere from the hospital all the way to the corner of Cole and Riverview. A couple things that came to mind when I thought about that, and I am not in favor for reducing it. And when I was thinking it through, there's 2 schools that are there that are just a couple blocks away. So we have a fair amount of buses making turns, several times a day there. That corner is kind of hard to manipulate as it is because people tend to kind of, they pull up and don't get over to the right all the time. And if anybody's parking along there, it's kind of tough. So I just wondered if anybody talked to Monroe Public Schools about their thoughts about that. These can be rhetorical for now. Second is, we have city buses on there, and we definitely have the fire department. The fire department uses that road constantly because that's really nobody's going down Noble and trying to hang a left turn down Hollywood. They're coming down Maywood because that's the widest, easiest road because of Macomb. So it's used almost exclusively by the fire department from what I can tell. Let's see. The road was that width for some particular reason that predates me, and I've been here all of my life, going up to not quite 50 years yet. So someone made that decision. I've lived on Maywood and my wife and my children for over about 20 years now. So I've been there for a significant amount of time. That road was determined to be that width for some particular reason. Another rhetorical question is, did we look into why the previous engineering department or whoever would be in charge of that thought that was a good idea, likely because of some of the reasons I'm listing. Another thing is I looked into, there's a cost differential, right? So if you shrink the road, you got to pay a little less asphalt. Concrete curbs, I'm sure, are the same. It's the same length of curbs. But if we shrink it, asphalt's about half the price of concrete. We got to double the width of the approaches. So as we shrink them in, we got to go wider on the approaches. So if concrete's twice as much, I'm not sure we're saving really any significant money by cutting out a little bit of asphalt and adding a whole bunch of concrete on the other side. Just personally, we were never notified. So we found this out more or less by accident. We would have preferred, and there's other neighbors here that you might hear from, that we thought maybe that should have been a comment or something that came out to us so we could have discussed it earlier. I really don't want the road to end up like Lemerand or Smith. If you know Lemerand, which heads out of the hospital, comes straight out of the hospital parking lot, there's cars on both ways. I live on Maywood, so I take that to get from Monroe. That road's a nightmare to try to get down. You're like playing ping pong trying to drive down it with cars parked on both sides. It's not wide enough. So I'm worried about consistent of roads that aren't wide enough. Another one too is Smith. So Smith is, if you come out of the Postal Service, and that's the road that'll go over to 3rd Street. I was going down that today, and there was a police car coming the other way. That was on Smith on the other side of 3rd Street. And with the parking there, it starts wide where Met Milling used to be, or the current, I call it a Met because I used to go to St. Mike's. So it's wide when you turn, and then it shrinks right down. So what happens is you can't get 2 cars along each other. These are I don't really want that to happen. Right now is the time to think about not doing that. Another comment too is sidewalks start for that entire part of the community on Maywood. If you go anywhere, it turns into Frenchtown, like in my backyard. So there are no sidewalks down Macomb whatsoever on that side of the road. So if you're going to go into Greenwood and towards the schools, all the kids take that road because that's and that's the only road there from Maywood all the way down to, I think it's Oakwood. So there's a lot of activity going on there. So it's kind of a safety issue for me, and I have kids. And then I think that's mainly it. Man, Maywood terminates at Macomb, so everybody has to turn. There's always a lineup up there. And when when hospital was going through construction, we had people parking on Maywood, turn left, 5, 6 cars deep. You get a bus or a fire truck tries to turn, it locks the whole road up. So I'm just leery about the decision to shrink the road. I'm not particularly sure if there was an engineering reason, if it was a cost reason, if those can be considered or shared. I've just done some back of the napkin kind of math, but it doesn't seem like whatever we're saving is worth it, since we're going to be stuck with that for probably the next 30 to 40 years. And that road is used a lot, probably more than people realize. So there's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. There may be comments from manager or staff on that, but I'll see if there's other comments first on the same topic. Any other comments from those present here this evening? Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Olson. I live at 318 Maywood Avenue. Glad to be here tonight. So, in conjunction with Tom Belan, a similar thing. I actually grew up there. I recognize some faces here. And it's about 32 years of my life I've lived on Maywood. So there's a piece of me, absolutely, that has a passion for the street and what it is and what it symbolizes for this town that I don't think was accounted for based on having some educated conversations with the city and some other people. So I just want to share those, first off. And second off, kind of tap on some of what Tom was saying, just to reiterate, and some other thoughts. So the first part is, from a safety standpoint, did we do a public safety analysis? I haven't heard of it. I've tried to look. I haven't seen anything. So that's one thing. And secondly, have we looked at traffic flow? I mean, I've lived on that street. I didn't see any the little rubber marker things they put on the road. I didn't see that. I have 2 children. I have a 5-year-old and I have a 1-year-old now. And we are in our front yard. You've probably seen us if you drive on the road, playing out there. And I will tell you right now, that road is constant. There is constantly foot traffic. There is constantly foot traffic. That's reality. The last year, not to get into the details, but I had a baby. So mothers, you know what I was doing. I can see out my one window. And I watched the traffic. So it was a nice little experiment for the concept of narrowing this road, in my opinion, that I want to share. Because if you look in front of our house, about 6 feet out, 5 feet out, it was destroyed. Everyone had to dodge it. You could not drive on it. So what's happened over the last year? I was watching daily for a full year. Ambulances, fire trucks, school buses, public buses, cars, trucks, it doesn't matter. People stopping in front of my house because they couldn't get around. 2 cars couldn't get through safely. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like watching an ambulance stop or a fire truck stop. So that's purely from a safety standpoint. So I want to share that, and that needs to be considered in my heart. I think that needs to be accounted for, and from what I've heard so far, I don't know if we fully looked into that and made an educated decision. The second piece is, I have young kids, so I'm raising my children. We have no plan to move. We love it there. When I talk to people, I work at Fermi. A lot of people there live in Monroe Power Plant. I work throughout all corporate DTE. So I touch a lot of people. And I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds, if not thousands of people. When I tell them, well, I haven't told thousands of people where I live, let's be honest here, but when I tell people where I live, if they're from Monroe, their first response every single time, that is a beautiful road. And probably 50% of the time are people that go down that road deliberately because it's a beautiful road. They love how it's open. I have a guy that lives on the end of Hollywood at Maywood, and from Fermi, you take Riverview down and you go down Hollywood. That's the short path. He actually goes around Cole Road, goes down Macomb, so he can go down Maywood Street for that moment of peace before he goes home. These are real things. So we might minimize this, but there's a reality there. That's a natural gift that our town has that people go out of their way. People are walking by all day, and they go out of their way to go down Maywood because of the peace it brings, and they enjoy walking down that street. They go out of their way. So please consider some of the things I said, and just know that it's really coming from safety, and it's coming from the town. We want to make our town better, and this is something we have for this town already. Why take it away? Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Other comments from those present here this evening not related to an agenda item? Other comments? See none? Mr. Bastu, if you're still any comments?
Just a follow-up on, a few of the questions and comments. Obviously, I think I'll talk about the buses and fire apparatus and what have you, that I know the engineering has turning radius templates that they use in their design if they come off of Macomb. And so they certainly, if there is an existing deficiency, certainly take those things into account. Very similarly, if you head east, they're at the width of the street as you continue past Hollywood are at 27 feet. The alignment that is designed for that segment between Monroe and Hollywood is at 27 feet, down from 32. The alignment would be fine. The point of it, some of that is that you're going to have a continuation of that same traffic, I think, that you're concerned with going to the schools using the same road geometrics as well. The other part of it is it's very noticeable, at least from my age, there's fewer vehicles parked on that segment of Hollywood or of Maywood between Macomb and Hollywood. And so, we're narrowing it up 2.5 feet on each side to give it to 27 feet, which is kind of an odd number. Most of the time they're 26. I know some of the other projects that we did in the neighborhood are 26 curb to curb as well. That one we went to 27, recognizing what was east of where you were at. But I will tell you that part of the reason is in some ways, and it's just, I've been doing this for 30 years, that a lot of the residential streets, in my opinion, not just here in Monroe, but in other communities where I've been involved with, is we have narrowed them up because in some ways they were over-designed. I think that, in this case here, where we've done this numerous times, through the city, where we take, it's not like it happens in a vacuum. There's a lot of analysis, and with a couple of projects where we had some decisions, we engaged the city council. But clearly, in this case here, though, that, we look at those type of things in making a determination as to, what the reconstruction would look like going forward. So, from our end of it, we were comfortable with it. Maybe we could have communicated that a little bit better with the neighbors. We'll acknowledge that much. But we have done a number of these projects where we've closed, rail crossings, abandoned roads because they're no longer needed or used. Narrowed them up. We did Conant Street from 36 feet to 28 a couple of years ago, and some of the residents were concerned. And then once it's applied, it works perfectly fine. I don't think you'll lose any, at least my opinion, you won't lose any of the character of the street other than you're gaining a couple of more feet in the terrace. But part of the rationale was, we did look at all of those type of details before completing the design for the project. So I don't know, Mr. Lewis, if there's anything else you might want to add that I forgot, or? No? Probably not. Okay.
I guess one comment.
You gotta come back up. Just your name's fine.
Based on your response. So I understand, and there's calculations done, but I would say that nobody would be advertising that come to move to our city because we got the tightest streets. All right. So that, regardless of what the calculation is, I will tell you, I've lived on lots of streets. I grew up on Tremont. I spent 20 years on Maywood. All right. I will tell you that people going down Maywood have a better feel for the city and the kind of image that I would want to portray if I was making the decisions than I would if I was going down Tremont, living in both locations for over 20 years. So minimums are great. I get that. We got turning radiuses and things, but it does make it harder for people to turn. It makes it harder for buses. It makes it harder for everybody. And I'm not sure what the difference is cost-wise, but I think if you took a vote down the road or asked anybody, would you like to live on a bigger street, wider, that's more comfortable, or let's just bring the curbs in and make it so we just, you're scraping mirrors as you're driving by on some, which is the problem I have with Lemeron. So I respect what you're saying, but I'm just responding with that. I think that people would prefer, and that if we were going to take an image of Monroe, we would not take a picture down Lemeron where people are like stopping trying to get around. We take a picture of Maywood and present our city that way. So, thank you.
If there's no other final comments, yes.
There is. Sarah Olson again. So the other piece of it, that growing up, learning to drive down that street, there's a reality that Macomb and Maywood used to be one of the most accident-prone intersections. So if you look at the engineering of that street, that street bows down significantly. If you watch the city buses, the school buses, the fire trucks, the way they have to bow out, go out into the other lane to go down Maywood, it's significant. So there's a line right now that would be about 5 foot where that road, where Maywood right now would go to. So there was a car at the intersection, and I went to turn, I would have hit the car. So we might have looked at analysis, but I don't know if that's what I'm saying. What did we really look at? Because I don't hear anything about, we did a public safety analysis. I don't hear that. That's a reality. I don't hear that we did a traffic flow analysis. I don't hear that we structurally have looked at the road. Macomb bows steep. You can't turn from the edge of Macomb right now. That's a huge bow on that road. That bow on that road is what you would see over a 5-lane road normally. My grandpa used to be a road engineer. So I asked him, that's reality. So why aren't we looking at the facts? So I don't know what, I would like some answers. And that might be a little too assumption, and I apologize in advance, but this isn't just a heartfelt, oh, this would be pretty. There's a real element of safety that I don't understand, and I'm not getting an answer. And that's, I guess, my real concern. I'm not hearing an answer, and I'm bringing up the Macomb part of it. I didn't think I'd have to, but I mean, there's a few different elements.
I guess I'll make a couple comments. And there's decisions that have to be made regarding road projects. And there's many locations in our city where buses have to access schools. I know that you're familiar with another one. And the road's nowhere near the width of what your road will be, but it seems to manage to get in and out. I understand the aesthetic and the importance of the width of the street to the residents that are there. But I also understand that the other roads that are narrower, have far more homes and far more cars, would want the same width of the road, I'm sure, but that's not practical either. So how do we as a council balance all this, not just from a cost size, but a use size, cost relative, but also use, but also traffic flow. And there's an understanding what the traffic flow is, whether it's there or on another street where it could be right where the school is or down the street from there, and how people choose to get to the location. So it's not taken without that consideration. I know that may not be the answer you're looking for, but think about that, is how do we balance this through all the streets? Because there's not one street that's more important than the others, and there's one street that people will take because they find their route in which to take. And sometimes they're wider and sometimes they're narrower. I don't have the answer maybe that you're looking for, but it's just not, as I think was said, it's not within a vacuum. There is an understanding of what widths work within in the city, and whether there's parking on one side or two side. And there's some that are one way that we're having that discussion earlier at the work session. Should our roads that are one way through the heart of neighborhoods be converted back to two way? Because the one way, why was it one way? I don't have the history of why Maywood was built the way it was, and if it was built when the houses were put there. I don't have that answer. But I can tell you there's other streets that are narrower that were changed to one way because it was a business that was operating in a large sense and many employees. But here it is 30 years later, and we're still running one way down a street for no reason. And one goes one way and the next street over goes the opposite. Why aren't they two-way? Why wouldn't the neighborhood be changed that way? And I know change is difficult for some of those. It may not be the same issue here. So I'm probably not giving you the answer you're looking for, but the consideration is how do we cone it from 30-some feet plus to 27 and have that where, there's not the wide avenue to drive down. And it says the same. It is actually a pass-through route as well for commercial as a secondary route.
Is it for emergency vehicles as well?
Well, there's emergency vehicles going on all streets. So, the third to Conant's not, but, yeah, Conant, I was thinking Elmira. But, you get to third and you make a left there and you go out to what is Front Street out to the freeway. It's an alternate route for commercial vehicles as well. And that was reduced to the size in which we're talking about. So it's not just about reducing because we have to reduce, but you have to look at it and say, if we leave it the same distance and same width, and the next street over says, well, we'd like to have that also. It's a balance between the projects we have to do, and part of it's the cost, but part of it's, how do we allow the flow and traffic for everybody's use work? That's about the best I can say at this point. I have some other thoughts, but I don't know if there's other comments. John?
My comment, Your Honor, is
Councilman
that
Michael
I think, at least from my perspective, I think the ambiance of Maywood is not in the width of the pavement. The ambiance of your neighborhood is the fact that you have wide setbacks. The houses are 25, some of them are 50 or 75 feet off the street. They're well landscaped. The trees along the street are mature. It's got more of a suburban feel than some of the historic neighborhoods in town, which have a higher density. Tremont, for example. There's more houses per block on Tremont than there are on Maywood. So I think it's not the width of the street as far as I'm concerned. When I go down Maywood, I don't look at the width of the pavement. I'm looking at the quality of the homes and the quality of the neighborhood. That's what makes the neighborhood. I think the other part on the roads that as taxpayers we should be concerned about is that every foot that we can take off of a street in the future is one less foot that we have to maintain 15, 20 years from now. It's less storm water that we have to deal with, which we have to account for into our river. And it's less snow removal that we have to pay for as taxpayers. And that all does amount up. I think the reduction that was proposed from the 32 to the 27 is still going to provide a very maneuverable street, considering the fact that almost everybody on the street has a driveway and they park off the street. But I have to say, like I said, personally, when I drive down Maywood, I'm not looking at the width of the road. I'm looking at the quality of the housing in the neighborhood that you guys have. That's what really makes Maywood to me, Maywood. That's my opinion. Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Accounted for safety, that's what matters.
Point on safety is, and the other part is our engineer, has a master's degree in transportation engineering. He will tell you that wider streets mean higher speeds, and they're less safe, especially two-way streets that are wider. The speed goes up because the field of vision goes up and people just instinctively drive faster. So there are more vertical elements that are in the street, like street trees. The narrower the street is, the slower the traffic's going to be. We just finished North Custer. It was 3 lanes, one in each direction, left-hand turn lane. It's now 2 lanes with bicycle lanes. I drove it 2 or 3 times this weekend to get a feel for it. The speeds are lower. The speeds have decreased since we've decreased the width of the lanes. It's much safer for people to cross the street in those neighborhoods now. So these are some of the actions that the city has been taking periodically when we have the opportunity. As we look at the streets, how can we make them better not only for cars, but how can we make them better for pedestrians and for bicyclists? So it's a discussion that we have here at our workshops. Unfortunately, we like the manager said, people should have been notified that we were going to reduce the width, but it's not that we haven't talked about it in terms of a transparent way at our meetings, because all of our meetings, our workshops and our council meetings are televised, and we go through all these issues as a group collectively before the engineering department actually starts the projects. So, but wanted to give you my observations.
Thank you,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Vining?
We went through a similar situation with Conant Street in my neighborhood. We had a lot of the same concerns, except we don't have very many driveways. So most people park on the street on Conant. We were very concerned about that. I think it has slowed down traffic just because it was a wide boulevard as well. You just can't drive as fast as you normally could, but we have city buses on a regular route down that street. Of course, our school buses and the emergency vehicles. And we've adjusted to it. It is irritating, I'll admit, at times having to wait at certain turnouts because it feeds into the Orchard neighborhood, which is the only way you can get there. So you don't have any choice but to use Conant to get to my house. So it can be a little irritating, but I believe we've adjusted well to it in the neighborhood. And you guys do have a really beautiful street, and I always admire the homes when I drive down the street. And hopefully this won't take away from the beauty. But we were upset about it too as well on Conant. But I'd say it's been about a year or 2 years. We've adjusted to it really well. So I hope, if this happens on Maywood, that you all will be able to adjust to it as well. I haven't noticed any safety issues. It's just a little irritating to have to, you don't want to slow down all the time and pull over and wait. So, yeah, I understand a lot of your feelings about the reduction, but we have adjusted to it. Thank you.
Your Honor, can I say one?
Woman Germaini?
What I'm hearing from everyone is, I think as a city, we should have notified the residents, bottom line. I don't think it was fair to the residents for them to hear about it in hindsight. You're taxpayers, you live on that street for a reason, you moved there for a reason, and I understand your anxiety about all of that. I feel bad that you did not get anything communicated to you in a timely manner. That's what should have happened. There should have been something done, letters far in advance of this when we're going to start the work and you're just now finding out. So I am sorry for that. But you deserve better. That's all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks. Any other comments, Mr. Pastor?
No, not for me.
Other comments from those here this evening, whether this topic or other topics? Seeing none. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for item B, approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,330,446.57. 1,330,446.57.
Thank you. Any items on the consent agenda council wishes to have pulled for further discussion?
Number 2484 and 2489.
Your Honor. 2479 and 2482.
79 and 82. Other comments from council wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda, those here this evening? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Your Honor,
Councilor Felder.
I motion that all items not pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Second. There's a motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that the items not pulled from the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. First item, please.
The first item is item 2479, Memorandum of Agreement with Camilla One.
Councilwoman Vining.
Yes, Your Honor. I know we briefly discussed this before, but I just want to say, I know that we often, or what I think is often, rehire retirees. And I just want to state for the record that I think we need to start looking at training and hiring young people from our city to do these jobs, as a lot of people who've been around for many years are getting ready for retirement. And I don't know if we want to keep setting precedent to rehire retired people when there's a lot of young people in our city who need to be trained in the skilled trades. And our unions, I know when I go to some union meetings, the people are getting a lot older, and many of them have sent their children off to college, so they're not doing the blue collar work anymore. And I think that we just as a city really need to begin to look into how we can continue to develop our workforce so that we don't always have to rehire retirees. Not that I have anything against the wonderful retirees, but they're getting retirement and then they're coming back and getting a full paycheck from the city. And I know there's a lot of people out there who would be happy to do these jobs. I know some of these industries, there's a lack of trained individuals, especially with building inspectors. But maybe here in the near future, we need to look into how we can train people or team up with the unions and train new members coming into the workforce. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Other comments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilman Klein.
I wasn't going to pull this, but since Councilman Vining did, I'm going to ask. We have had a lot of discussions about, and I'm assuming that Mr. Clems is going to do rental inspection and blight inspection. I don't think he's a building inspector.
He is an inspector.
He's a-
He does have his inspector's license, yes.
When did he get that?
I want to say the end of April.
April
Okay.
12th, 2019.
Well, one of the things I would like to do is, on a monthly basis, I would like to start getting, like we get from the city engineer, he gives us a status report on construction projects. I would really like to know what the building department's doing relative to inspections. How many inspections they're doing on rental inspection, how many inspections they've done on blight violations. I would like to start seeing that information. And I don't think it's unreasonable to ask.
Oh, it's easy to actually, I'm just, now that we have our GIS coordinator, just pulling a lot of that data right off the BSNA file that we have, so.
Okay.
Ironically, with our new information technology we're at, Director, when I get back starting next week, he's arranging meetings with just about all of the departments to go through performance measures. And again, the essence of it is extracting it from our existing databases so that it's not going to require a lot of timely personnel time to provide that. So I'm sitting in on all of those meetings. It's that important for all of us to have that detail of information. So, but I'll get get it started with the building department code end of it as well.
I guess Councilman?
Go ahead.
I'll take another step further, because I know over the years we've had inspections done, and this person in question was a former PSO, and his job before he departed was doing inspections. But I agree, Councilman, when you talk about the qualifications, and as reading through this, he got a certification to be a certified inspector, which is good, because that's what we want. But if we have other personnel in other departments that are doing inspections, I'd like to see those reports as well. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that for years. And I think it's important to know how many inspections we're doing, who's doing them, what the outcomes are, and what the benefit is, how we move forward. I don't know if some of the departments that were doing them previously are still doing them, but we need to harness the time that we're utilizing these tasks and getting reports to speak to what the outcomes are.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding with Commune Unit 1 relative to the full-time inspector position.
Second. There's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Lamore, on item 2479, the memorandum of agreement with Camilla 1, as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Yes. Michaelangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is 2482, authorization to purchase delinquent tax parcels.
Councilwoman Vining.
So I think, Your Honor, this is for the city manager. So I got a call, actually an email today from Mr. Shepherd, the property owner. He owns all the property to the east, the west, and the south of 1321 East 3rd Street. He stated that he spoke with you. I know we're gonna make a move on this tonight. Is there any possibility of him being able to get the church back? He's been keeping the grass cut, and I don't know if anybody from the city has noticed. It's not looking as bad over there here lately. But I just wanted to ask before we move on this, is that a possibility at all? Or
This-
would he get first rights of refusal after if the city purchases this parcel? Or what's the plan?
If I may, through the mayor, in response, the one that we have on here is 1321, and clearly on our assessment with the building department, it's blighted and it needs to come down. Across the street is 1312, which is the church that you're referring to. And it's, it's not the same, they're different. One's the residential home on the north side of the street, and the church. And I think that one that he's interested in may be up for delinquent tax sale next year.
Okay.
But I will tell you, part of the process is when these things are coming through with the county treasurer, and I said there's two properties that we thought were salvageable, but we're pulling the certificate of occupancy and posting it so that going forward, so in the event that he decides to purchase this in the future, there is some occupancy issues that will have to be addressed before they can operate. And I think in our case, the program that Mr. Green has established is pretty good as far as evaluating those and which ones we're going to revoke the CO on it and make sure that they're brought up to code before they're back occupied again. But that one's up for next year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on item 2482? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Your Honor, I'll move that we authorize the purchase of 5 parcels from the county treasurer in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
Second. Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Moore, on item number 2482, authorization to purchase delinquent tax parcels as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Michaelangeli?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine? Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 2484, West 7th Street Bump Out Construction, authorization to proceed.
Your Honor, we pulled this based on our conversation at the workshop relative to the West 7th Street bump out, which is part of the recommendation to convert West 7th and West 8th from one-way to two-way. As part of that, there's 2 traffic control orders, 048-002 and 170-002, that pretty much effectuate the conversion from one to two-way. So my motion for council consideration is to approve the West 7th Street bump out construction as proposed by the Director of Engineering, and to also approve traffic control orders 048-002, 170-002, and further notify all the residents on West 7th and West 8th Street of the action that's being taken.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Icolangi, supported by Councilman Felder, regarding 2484, the West 7th Street bump out construction, authorization to proceed, but also with the additional items related to the traffic control order. Since there's a adjustment to what we was on the fact sheet, but also though it was discussed at the work session, I'll take any comments from council before we vote. Councilman.
Your Honor, yeah, I would like to possibly hold off on doing the second part of that action simply because I don't think enough of the residents have been informed. I know that Councilman Michelangeli wants to inform them. I think we should do that first prior to doing those traffic actions. The bump outs I think are fine, but I think just waiting on the second part of that would be prudent on our part, just to give them time to come in and make comment, especially since it's going to take 1 to 3 months or longer, whatever it is, to actually put those into fruition. So for me, I'd be more comfortable just sitting with the way that the item is presented right now.
I'll see if there's other comments, and then I'll.
Your Honor, I thought we had discussed this at the workshop. The reason why I think you can't divide them is because if we go ahead with the bump outs without converting the streets to a two-way, we are actually widening the street and increasing speed and safety issues. The other reason for this is we take the action now. The letters go out to the residents. If there is a pushback from the neighborhood, we still have the time to consider it due to Mr. Lewis's projected schedule that this is probably not going to happen until September or October.
So that's a question I have, and I think that might be some clarification I was going to look for and ask, because I know that as this project was coming forward, with the contractor was adding to, I'll just say adding to projects that's going on with it, that they're in the area doing work. So I understand that part, the time is of essence there. And then the other half is, which is what I think both of you are asking, is the time to actually be able to get that, and if there's from results before work is done. So I don't have that answer, and I'm looking at Mr. Pastu. And
The reason for us putting it on tonight is that the contractor may be able to fit it into a schedule quicker, sooner than later. At least that's my discussion that Mr. Lewis and I have had. Although there's no commitment from a time standpoint either. So we wanted to try and get them locked in as quick as we could while they were still here in town with an existing contract that they were willing to hold. So
Time frame is.
that's kind of what I'm looking at, if there is even an estimate of that. Because as Patrick comes forward, Councilman, you're correct, because we're going to do the one, and just no sense in doing the one if the second doesn't come at the same time. And I think there's support for that. But it's also what we've started the meeting tonight with, was residents that probably would have some dialogue up front, might have relieved some of the conversation tonight. So that's the question for Mr. Lewis, and it really comes about timing, trying to get it done in the short time frame we have, but yet can we accomplish the others that we're hoping to do with the residents?
Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. I think Mr. Pastu's comments were pretty correct on that. We're not 100% sure. I mean, unfortunately, as you saw with some of our residents, gentleman on Hollywood, which I didn't get up to address, we've spoken to him offline. But the concern is, I mean, it's like I've said at our multiple points here where we've approved contracts. The market is extremely tight. If you get a contractor in town, you keep them in town. I asked the question of last year's resurfacing contractor, which is actually what's bumping into everything. We have a contractor for this year, and we have last year's that's still holding over on Scottwood, Parkwood, and Maple largely because of the lockout last year that pushed everything into this year. We've got a very good relationship with Al's Asphalt. This is the type of project that's tailored well for them because they're fairly small. They do engage some fairly small subcontractors, and they're a little nimbler. If we were to have one of the large contractors, there'd be no chance at all of getting this added on. They did not commit to a time frame. We had originally thought maybe they would do it out when they're doing the other half of Maple, which could be as early as 2 weeks from now. They're pouring curb on the west side today and tomorrow, and then in fact, I think they actually got done today, and they're going to do drive approaches on Wednesday. So it's possible when they do the other half, they'll come in. It's also possible that they may have other commitments and they may have to jump back around the Labor Day window. We don't know for sure, but looking at the council's calendar, part of the reason we wanted to present that now is because I know your next meeting is going to be very congested, and then there's a 3-week gap again in which I actually will not be in town for the August 5th meeting. So I'd like to be able to defend the content and discuss this with you when I'm here. Again, I think you know what's going on now, and if you were to delay it at this point, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But we could lose that window. They could be here in 2 weeks to do it, or it might be 2 months. I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, and this is one of those circumstances.
So it's not definitive, but it's still the balance that we're trying to do as a council to make sure we get projects, and I think there's support for where we're going, but also it's appropriate to have support of the residents as well.
Your Honor, may
Yep, Councilman,
just a question for the city manager. We want to inform the neighborhood of what actions we've taken, but I don't see a reason why we always have to have the residents. We could have an informational meeting that's done administratively
Yeah.
by which we've done on other projects where they're not in front of council. We just have an informational meeting, let people come in and we go over the scope of the project with them and get their comments, and then we get a summary of what those comments are in order to expedite the process.
That's probably a very good approach. I remember years ago in Farmington, myself and the public safety director, he wrote the traffic control orders. We did these rather than running them to a separate committee or bringing them back. And if there was something enough that we thought their council should hear, they trusted our discretion. So, you know, what I may ask, we're playing this on the fly a little bit, but, you know, if you approve the authorization and even the traffic control order, you know, subject to holding this informational meeting, you know, I think that we get our contractor lined in. We do give an opportunity for the public to express any concerns or gather any information they may need. And if it's not all that substantive, I can report back to City Council with that. So we keep it alive and keep the contractor, but we also do the informational piece, which I think is probably what the council's looking for.
I'm going to take Councilwoman Germaini's comment, and then I think we might have a adjustment here, but go ahead.
So when would the residents be able to get their letters? In between all of this? So what timeline are we looking at, so the residents?
Operate on whatever timeline the council desires, with the caveat that
The sooner the better. And I think that, you know, candidly, I can draft it in right here at the dais, is that essentially the city is going to move forward with a two-way conversion of 7th and 8th based on a study prepared by our traffic consultants, OHM Engineering. We'll invite you to attend an informational meeting if you'd like to understand the project going forward, something to that effect. So
Letters will go out in a timely manner.
we'll get them
That's the
out
only thing I'm
we'll get them
worried
out by
about.
the end of the week. Yeah. And then schedule something probably the week of the 15th, probably is the earliest we could do that and give it.
probably reasonably with a holiday week here.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just add, and I think there's probably a follow-up probably needed to this, because what he's looking at, it'd be subject to holding a resident meeting, is what I heard. But the timeline, as was stated, allows for those things to occur and still get back on and keep on a schedule. I think that is doable.
Yep.
But there is, I know Councilman Murray may have another comment, and
Yeah.
I want to go back to Councilman Michelangelo and his motion.
Yeah, as long as we change that motion, I think we're totally in favor of that. It's just, I wanted the residents to have that opportunity.
So I'm going to go back, Councilman Michelangelo, with the motion. I'm not going to repeat it because I know the clerk has it from what it was what was the item was for, but also what the traffic control orders would add. The only thing we need, and I'd have to get support from your second councilman, would be that subject to the holding the resident meeting as was described.
I think didn't I have it in the motion already? No.
Not that part.
Not the rest.
Then I'll add that we subject to a resident informational meeting.
Information meeting.
Change is friendly.
Okay, so we have, there's a motion and a second, which is still acceptable. Any other discussion from council? Thank you, Patrick.
I have one technical item, obviously, on the timeline that I talked about. If we're going to be subject to a resident meeting that's not going to be scheduled till the week of the 15th, obviously I'll have to inform the contractor that
Yeah.
it can occur in July. the physical modifications can't occur in July if that's the case, because we just simply won't. I won't be able to call them off if they really would intend to get over there the week they're going to flop and do the other side of Maple. I can't jeopardize. I can't risk them.
Well, let's not lose
starting.
sight of the fact that the point of this is giving them some information. If it's not this contractor at that price, there will be somebody to do it. So
Yeah.
I think it's important just to have the informational meeting. And
Absolutely. I
I
just
think
want to make
there's potential to move forward from there, so.
I just told you it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. I want to make sure you know it's not going to be 2 weeks. So
I understand that.
sure. Thanks.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. If there's no other conversation, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman?
Yes.
Vining? Yes. Jermaine? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 2489, resolution to amend scheduled July work session and regular meeting.
Council Michelangelo.
Your Honor, we needed to substitute the resolution that was in the packet, 2489, with the resolution that was put on our desk. And I'll just ask the city manager maybe for information for the audience what the difference in the two resolutions are.
yeah, the resolution, the purpose behind its change is to allow the opportunity to focus on the public safety assessment for the July 15th meeting. The essence of it would be to cancel the scheduled work session, which is at 6 p.m., change the start time for the regular meeting to begin at 6 p.m., and then the prior resolution had a location change going to the third floor. This meeting will take place in the council chambers, and the plan is to have our consultant provide the findings of their study to this point to the city council and to the public, and have it televised as well. And then at some point, if determined by the council, we could move into a closed session. Those are the essence of the change. But clearly, the location change is to start here and have the presentation initiated in the council chambers and available to the public.
I move that we accept the revised resolution amending the July 15th, 2019 work session and regular meeting schedule.
Motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Felder on item 2489, resolution to amend the scheduled July work session and regular meeting as stated in the revised resolution and explained by the manager. Other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Vining? Yes. Jermaine? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
No other items, Your Honor.
Well, it is July, so we're to Councilwoman Whitman. Comments this evening.
Your Honor, I have no comments this evening.
Okay. Councilman Michelangelo.
Yes, Your Honor. Just want to let the public know that the River Raisin Battlefield issued a public information release. They have a number of really interesting programs that have been scheduled for the summer that people in town should take advantage of if they have the opportunity. The other thing that I wanted to mention, for those of us that have been in City Hall and local government for a long time, there was a person that was always in attendance at our meetings regardless of the weather. And many times he was a person that would get up and freely speak his mind and let us know what it was like to be a taxpayer and what his thoughts were on our issues. And unfortunately, even though he was in his 90s, he passed away last week, and his name was Adam Yeager. Mm-hmm. And he's somebody that always sat pretty much in the middle toward of the council chamber. I don't believe Adam was actually in the new revised, and I tried to think of what he would say. He probably would say the sound's better and the lighting's better, but it's probably not worth the taxpayers' money. So, but he is going to be missed, and I think more importantly, Adam kind of symbolized what really makes this a great country, that as a taxpayer and as a resident, you can freely come up and you can challenge the people that are elected in office. And he will be missed. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Vining.
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Juneteenth event. I wanted to give the names of our winners of the essay contest. Delmar Clay. Delmar, a lot of the council people know Delmar. He's going to, I believe, 8th grade. He won first place and read his essay at the event. We had a tie for second place, Mariana White and Latasia White. They are sisters, and they submitted their essays separately. The teachers over at Arborwood really joined in with us to help the children write their essays, and they tied for second place. They are 5th and 4th graders. Latasia was actually too young to enter the contest, but since she asked, of course, we let her, and she ended up placing and winning second place. So that was good. And then Dorian Matthews, I believe Dorian is going over to the high school this year, and he won 3rd place. And the reason why I really wanted to point this out is because Monroe News did a article on the event, and I just personally felt like for all the articles that they put on the front page when there's a melee at Navarre or trouble over at the center, I really thought or had hoped that they would have done a more thorough job presenting some of the positive things that our youth are doing. So I just wanted to acknowledge those young people not out there getting in trouble, but actually writing and winning prizes for their writing. So also at the event, there were over 300 attendees. I even got some numbers as high as 400 people attending at the peak hours. Thanks to the Monroe County Democratic Party and their president, Matt Vitito. We had free food for everybody. We never ran out of food, which was another big deal if you do events like that where it's hard to tell how many people are going to show up. So that was great. Our young people performed, and when I say they wowed the crowds, people were pulling over who didn't know anything about it just because they heard the young people performing. So there's just so much talent in the neighborhood, and these were all local kids, mostly all from the Orchard East community. And I mean, when I say they wowed the crowd, you just had to be there. We had a live band playing that is made up of members all from the neighborhood. So that was great to have the live band there. I really want to thank Navarre Library, especially our youth tech, Sarah Phillips, and her husband, Joel Phillips, because they made it sort of like an indoor-outdoor thing where the party was going on inside Navarre Library and also going on outside in the city parking lot. And they were very instrumental in setting up the essay contest. And of course, we intruded on the library using their kitchen and all their stuff. So I just really want to thank Navarre Library for that. The fire department brought out the new fire engine, so that was beautiful. That was a big hit. The city police brought a vehicle, but mostly they had their own table, and of course they gave away free things to all the kids, so that was great. And brand scaffolding, they're I guess a company or maybe a contractor out at the Edison Power Plant. And when I tell you these guys came out that morning and built us the beautiful stage exactly to our specifications and donated it to the event, it was just such a big deal that a company would would come out and do something like that for the event. Um, Mike Smith from the UAW. United Way. And at first we thought it might not happen because of liability and everything, but thanks to our wonderful city manager, that was able to happen. Once he made sure it was going to be safe and all of that, then we were able to have that. But unfortunately, the pictures and the newspaper story does not tell the story of, I mean, everywhere you looked, smiling faces. Everywhere you looked, people from all over, members of the council, city employees, uh, people came from out county, and that was the idea. We wanted to get people from out county and everywhere else to come and see and to learn about Juneteenth, of course, but to show that one of the uh, unique things about the Orchard East neighborhood is the familiar spirit there. So it's really a family. Everybody knows everybody, and in this day and age, we've lost a lot of that, but that still exists in our neighborhood. And I'm glad that we were able to display how much of a family we are, not just a neighborhood, but really family and close knit. And I'm glad that that was able to be showcased. So I really want to talk about that some more because I was disappointed in the coverage that it received. But if you want to see the pictures, we have over 100 pictures if you have Facebook, or ask your kids or grandkids to look on their Facebook. And you go to the Monroe County Juneteenth Celebration. That's the name of the page. And those pictures really tell the story. They really tell the story of that day. And so next year it's going to be bigger and better. We already had people pledging and wanting to be sponsors. Advertisement and communicating a thing is always an issue when you're doing event planning. So we're going to work on that to get the word out more. And yeah, it was just great. And we really wanted to thank the city because the city was just so helpful. All the departments, I know you guys, we can't give money to personal events like that, but just the support from the administration and the city workers, like I said, the police department and the fire department, it was just wonderful. And so I just wanted to thank everybody who came, all the performers, of course, Oaks of Righteousness, who was always right there for the neighborhood and the community as a whole. We definitely couldn't have done it without them. It was a little awkward with the timing with the ALCC situation, and then having the event right there on their parking lot. But some of that was made up with Oak stepping in to help us. Of course, we want to thank Miss Gerald and Mr. Gerald who came down from Southfield and helped us with this. But I just can't say enough how wonderful it was. And then on a less exciting note, and I've already talked to our city engineer over and over again about this, but what we now call Lake Bayview, we have some flooding problems in the neighborhood, and I just want to say on the record that I am in touch with Patrick and the engineering department, and they are working on trying to find a solution. We are also concerned about mosquitoes and things like that, to have a big, I don't even know how big that is, but it's filled with water all the time. So also, I ran into the resident from Walnut Street, and Mr. Overstreet passed away, and Mrs. Overstreet, she's not doing that well either. So I'm hoping that we're still looking into the Walnut Street situation that's been going on for about 18 years. So I know it has to do with the low-lying areas and stuff, but I wanted to put that on the record because I get asked about that constantly. And, I just wanted the residents to know that I am in communication with the engineering department to rectify those situations. I hope we can see Walnut Street rectified before we even get to Bayview. So I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Councilwoman Germaini.
First of all, there is a school supply drive. I don't know, I mentioned that because it just got warm, but if you can start now, backpacks, school supplies, pencils, pens, paper, rulers. Libraries are collecting them, the YMCA, the police department. There are several other organizations, which was in the newspaper, but I'll remind you at a later date. Also, the gentleman from Hollywood Drive did not mention the streetlights that are still out. I don't know if we have an update on that at all with the streetlight with DTE. I know we've had to call out DTE before on the power outages before, and these residents are concerned about the safety because they have no streetlights on the one block by Lorraine. Any update, Vincent? Or on the
What's that?
power outage on Hollywood Drive?
A note down here is a follow-up for Hollywood, Lorraine area with the street lighting.
There are special needs people that live on that particular block, and they work shifts.
Yeah.
And they're petrified to go into the midnight shift because it's pitch black. And I can understand that as well.
Yeah. I'll talk with Mr. Lewis, but certainly if we got to reach out to DTE and their street lighting department, we'll do so to address that. Yep.
All right. Aside from that, everyone have a safe and happy 4th of July. Don't drink and drive, and don't boat and drink. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, just thank you, Your Honor. Progress is the word, is what I'd like to use here. Along with progress is a little bit of pain. Glad to see that we're in the final steps of the old Lazy Boy property agreement with Frenchtown. There's progress to be made there. Thank you to all of our city residents during all the construction going on around town. Thank you for your patience. Obviously, it's painful, but once again, it's progress. We're getting these streets paved. I'd like to thank the Southfield Citizens Oversight Committee for your presentation tonight and your gracious comments. It was very gladly and needed here and appreciated. Thank you very much. Appreciate everything you've done tonight. We had some good dialogue regarding the ALCC, but we have a long way to go, and I don't intend on letting up until we have answers. So I'm going to be a thorn in everybody's side until we get this thing settled regarding the ALCC. Looking forward to the July 15th meeting, the public safety assessment. Looking forward to getting that over with and finalized. I think a lot of good things. I'm hoping a lot of good things will happen from that. And with this week, we have the big 4th of July celebration. I hope that everybody has a happy and safe 4th of July. Remember the timelines for fireworks. Please have consideration of your neighbors when using them. And enjoy yourself during that time off. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Just to thank you to everyone who worked together to put on Juneteenth. That was a fabulous event. And then just a reminder to have a safe, courteous, and respectful 4th of July.
Thank you. Well, a couple notes. In fact, Councilman Michelangeli, I also thought about Adam Yeager, and I think all the years that he comes here. Adam Yeager, 1833 South Custer. I mean, we heard it almost every meeting, and I smile when I think about that because I think about, Councilman, your comments were exactly it, is the opportunity for anybody, if they wish, to come and have their piece to say, and things that whether they brought show and tell items or not weren't needed, but on the other hand, it was there to give his point, what he had to say about our community, and you got to enjoy and very much appreciate his passion. And I was real thankful for the fact that his family, before it got in the paper, had made some outreach to some members just to let us know. And it was a private ceremony, so it wasn't something that we were able to attend. And I kind of was disappointed we weren't able to, but I understand his wishes, and that's what they were. And Adam got his last word in, so. Road projects, we had conversation at the work session, we had conversation in the meeting, and I think Councilman Lower, your comments are well taken. But I do want the public to know that we have an annual capital improvements timeline, and every, not spring, it's even before that, we've moved it up or back further to have these discussions about projects for the year. There's also those projects that are for this year and next year and years to come. We started doing some of the engineering costs are already put into the budget. So that is an opportunity for the public to think about the projects. When you see somebody a year before coming out and measuring your road, you can expect it within a year or two, probably going to be a project. But I do agree that as we do outreach, we make sure we do our part as well. But the city's website for future projects is there. You can see projects that are in the queue for next year and the year after and 5 years down. And it's important that we do our part, but there's opportunities also for others to find that as well. I'm glad you mentioned Delmar. Delmar's one of our shining young lads in our Student Advisory Council, and as well as with the other students, and I congratulate them for their essays. Southfield Oversight Committee, I appreciate Deborah. Citizen, I'm sorry. I said oversight for the other one. But Deborah, I appreciate you being here, making the presentation, and taking the time to come here, but also that I'll know that we're very thankful, appreciative of your time, but also the presentation to the council, and we will find a place that this will hang to show our residents, all of our residents, the importance of how we include everybody. So thank you for that. Sure, I think we can get something here soon. The last part I had, I'm going to go with my last comments here, was about fireworks, and I think Mr. Pastu's and I chatted about that. I know that there'll be an opportunity for the kind of Chief McCormick to kind of review what those timeframes are. So my only comments about that is you have police and we have fire and their responsibilities to our community in responding when there are those that are real responsible, not just about the time, but how they do it. So my plea and my request, as for the council, is as well, first we want safety first for yourselves. If you are abiding by how the statute is as far as lighting off fireworks, for yourself and your family and your guests, but also be mindful of the location and the directions and your neighbors. We'll see how we get through the week, and we'll hear more about that here before the end of the night. So those are my comments for this evening, and Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
I have no comments.
Mr. Pastu.
Just a couple before Chief McCormick comes up. We'll give you I think at my next update, give you an update where we are with the Walnut Street. It'll be a confidential item that you can anticipate since it's approaching a year now. Public safety assessment. I want to make sure council understands. This is actually the second. This is an informational meeting, and at some point get some feedback from the council. It's not the conclusion. There will be more to come afterwards. So this is certainly one of the most important meetings that you're going to have. But I want everybody to understand it's not the end. We still got more work afterwards. So with that, Chief, if you want to come up and say a few words about fireworks and.
Honorable Mayor and Council, Charles McCormick, Chief of Police. Well, thank you, City Manager Pastu, for asking me to come up. We did field a few phone calls today, and maybe some of you have as well. There was a tweak in the law, so since 2012, we've been operating under one set of rules where actually every federal observed holiday you could light off fireworks the day before, the day of, and the day after. That was tweaked in just December of last year, where some of those dates have changed. But for this week, it's actually starting Saturday, June 29th until July, basically 5th, from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. You are allowed to let those fireworks off. I put together a packet, so we do encourage people to call our city records for at least the next couple of days if you have any questions about some of this information at 243-7500. They're aware. They have the information to give times and what exactly is legal, which is I look at it says it's called legal consumer fireworks, but they certainly seem like commercial fireworks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They are the reloadable shell devices, the aerials, the bottle rockets, firecrackers. And one thing to note, I think especially is of interest, is sparklers are almost one of the majority of ER visits during this week will be for sparklers. And I think sometimes we forget that, we hand those off to the little ones and think, well, it's just a sparkler, but they burn at 1,200 degrees. So a lot of little hands easily burnt, and where they're at with other ones, to touch faces and that. So we certainly want to be very careful with that. So again, June 29th started Saturday to July 5th. Till 11:45 p.m. from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. And I just like to echo the mayor's sentiments. Sometimes just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. We want to be good neighbors. Maybe if you're having a very large demonstration, if you could reach out to your neighbors, let them know that it's going to be happening. I know a lot of people have concerns with pets and things like that. They're just getting really nervous during these times. So.
Chief, I know that there'll be other dates through the year that we may just get refreshers.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Yep. They are I could real quickly December 31st till January 1st. I know we don't want to think that far out, but those are days that are available now. And Saturday and Sunday before Memorial Day, and the Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day. Those, and obviously, and then this week here are the legal days to use these fireworks.
Very good, thanks. Any questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Yep, our city attorney has a question, so, or a comment maybe.
I think
Mr.
it
Buds?
Maybe just a comment, Your Honor. Two other things. One, just because I know there will be some people who want to light fireworks off from a property other than their own. Can't do that without the permission of the property owner and can't do it from any publicly owned property is one caveat. And I would also say, to echo some of the other comments about safety, no operating fireworks while under the influence of any alcohol or drugs also.
That's our attorney. Well, thank you, Mr. Buds. I think your comment is good because I was probably in our thoughts as well, because some of you may live next to large parking lots, whether they be a private church or a school or just a vacant lot. Next thing you know, they're out there. And of course, we've had this in the years past, and the fire department's responded to an open field because they're lighting fireworks off. Thinking that's nobody's property, doesn't matter. What does matter? You can't do it on property you don't own. And that's when you start to have complications, then other responses that aren't really where we need to go, and just to be safe, as we all said. So, Mr. Pastu, other comments? Okay. So, other comments from those present here this evening? Any other comments from those present? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Echoangeli?
Yes.
Vining? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Thank you all.